Hello and welcome to Nextplore. This is the first in our podcast series that looks at ways that automation can supercharge your business processes. I'm Chris, I'm your host for today, and I'm very happy to welcome Chris Parker here today.
Thank you for having me.
And in fact, the coverage of today's topics is all about our own business, Nextbotics, talking about actually the challenges with automation in the marketplace, what some of the solutions are that we help our customers with, and we're going to dive into that in a number of different use cases. So Chris, again, thank you for joining us. I think the first thing, there's this big elephant in the room. There's lots of different terms for the technology we provide. It's called automation, it's called intelligent automation, it's called robotic process automation, it's called artificial intelligence, and a plethora of other terms as well. So can you cut through that for us? What is this thing that we're selling to our customers?
Absolutely. So most businesses, regardless of size or scale, execute manual, repetitive business processes. Intelligent automation refers to the technology and services that we offer to automate the repetitive elements. So let me give an example. Across the various business divisions in any organization, be that accounts payable, HR, operations, the processing of data is generally assigned to a group of individuals who are charged with the maintenance, management, and admin that occurs around that data. Now, those processes may include thousands of documents. Invoices, for example, that may be sourced from multiple suppliers, arrive in different formats on different templates, potentially be written in different languages. So very little consistency in the nature of that data, but processed on a very large scale. Invoice processing is actually a very good use case for us to mention because in this country, the average sized business hires 5 full-time employees to process 15,000 invoices a month. So as you can imagine, when you have humans processing such a vast amount of data, in particular within very mundane and repetitive processes, the scope for an increase in process lag, bottlenecks, and human error skyrockets. In fact, that increase is basically assured. So at Nextbotics, that is precisely the issue that we're looking to tackle. By eliminating the repetitive and low cognitive input work from your business, not only can we drastically reduce, if not eliminate, process lag and human error, we can also free up your staff to do more creative, strategic, and revenue-earning work in your business, which has a direct impact on recruitment and retention as well.
Perfect. So pretty good technology to really help businesses streamline their kind of manual processes today.
Absolutely. A necessary tool, I would argue.
So I think, really Nextbotics was designed and built to eliminate these high volume manual repetitive processes and use software bots. So the technology itself is software bots that automate the processes here. And we use that with a combination of our own technology and of course the expertise of our people. And we're really looking to drive efficiencies through organizations to remove those errors, remove those process lags, and drive a lot of benefit for those organizations.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. As the competitive landscape is intensifying, the regulatory landscape is becoming far more stringent. Organizations really need to prove their efficiency, show transparency in the way that they use data, and intelligent automation is a critical part of establishing that.
And of course, we talk about bots and bods quite a bit, the kind of technology, the bots and the bods, the people working together in harmony. And again, for us, that's a really important part of our solution because we're not looking to replace the humans, we're looking to augment the work that people do because, again, this mundane, boring stuff is much better handled by a bot than it is by a human. And again, we're elevating the work that humans can do. So working together is really important, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I think one of the biggest misnomers in the intelligent automation space is that RPA, artificial intelligence, is here to eradicate human jobs, but we're not here to eradicate jobs. We're here to augment them, and that's probably the most perpetuated fallacy in the media when intelligent automation is covered. I personally have actually never worked with a client who has eliminated people. Once we've made their processes more efficient, they repurpose them in the business into more revenue earning positions, compounding the benefit of an automation engagement.
Yeah, key benefit, I think, for how we operate and how we identify and deliver value back to our clients.
So that sounds like a really compelling sell to me. So why is it, do you think, that so many businesses choose not to automate their manual processes? Are they being negatively led by hyperbolic headlines that talk about how automation is here to replace jobs, do you think?
No, I think that's an interesting point, Chris. And in fact, I guess in the last 6-9 months, something like that, with the advent of Chat GPT becoming really mainstream, people have heard of AI now. They may not perhaps understand exactly what it is, but I guess a lot of people have gone onto the chatbot and they've asked it a question. It's summarised a lot of data for them. They've gone, wow, this thing is amazing. Of course, the real use cases for that kind of solution in the corporate world, there are use cases, but they're relatively minimal in terms of large, full-scale end-to-end processes with systems, documents, and all sorts of complex elements to them. So I think on the one level, ChatGPT has definitely brought the market up to a level where it's kind of thinking, what is this AI stuff? Can we do something with it? Now, if you then think about the actual technology itself that we're talking about, which we use AI, of course we do in our solution, but the other core component is RPA, robotic process automation, the software bots. And I think that's where there is a big gap in people's knowledge, particularly in the kind of SME market space where we operate in quite heavily. And companies don't necessarily know where to start. They don't know which processes to identify. Actually, can they get a benefit from that process? Will it save them money? Will it save them time, efficiency, all those things? They don't really understand what the technology can do. And as you know, because you do a lot of this, educating our customers is a really important component. And perhaps you might want to talk about that for a moment in terms of what you would do for a customer in terms of educating them on the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is a relatively new technology and, it's natural to see a decent amount of resistance when it comes to implementing this form of change. One thing that we do is spend a lot of time educating all of the potentially affected stakeholders in an organization. Even before we begin an engagement, I call them Introduction to Intelligent Automation seminars, where I'll sit down with SMEs, with different teams, and just talk about what the technology is. A lot of people, when you mention artificial intelligence, think of very wild ideas. They think of Arnold Schwarzenegger in a leather coat, but really it's quite simple technology. When strategically applied properly, you can do some really wonderful things. We're really talking about ocular recognition, coupling that with machine learning, so we can read multiple templates when we're doing invoice processing, for example, and natural language processing. We're not talking about these new forms of artificial intelligence like ChatGPT. We're certainly not talking about replacing creative or strategic or investigative work that human beings are needed to do. We're just using artificial intelligence to increase our capacity to automate repetitive, rules-based manual tasks and processes, and that really is all we're looking to do.
And I think generative AI and those other AI technologies that are fast moving and definitely here to stay. Obviously, we use those in our overall solution, but to, I guess, enhance and look at specific use cases for a client as opposed to the kind of end-to-end process level, I guess, is where it comes in.
Yes.
And I think from our perspective, that's where we can help clients, isn't it? We can really help them to identify the place to start. It might be in the operations area. There might be some operational processes they're really struggling with because they're complex and they're high volume and there's lots of time and effort required, and it might lend itself really well to automation. Conversely, sometimes there's a really small process, but it's absolutely critical to the business. It may not be massively time consuming, but it's board level important. Might be a really good use case as well. So we can identify with the company the particular use cases that are relevant to them that give them the best benefit for the organisation.
Yeah.
As you say, invoice processing, it's probably our go-to process. Most customers, we would talk about invoice processing because of the specific high volume of manual work that's included there.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, invoice processing is a really good use case to talk about because it properly illustrates what the technology can do. If you think of an invoice processing process, a process most businesses think can't be automated. You might have to log into a portal or receive a document by email, open that document, extract data, post it onto a system or onto a purchase ledger. You might need to upload those documents onto a system. All of that can be automated. It's really primed for automation. But you're right, we are generally looking to positively impact our clients' P&Ls, usually by reducing cost. We often measure that in time saved. But we are also often approached by companies that have very error-ridden processes that they need smoothing out, maybe for regulatory compliance reasons. Maybe they just want a more scalable business. Maybe they're struggling to reach people in their recruitment process because the process is too laden with errors and they're struggling to recruit. We also have clients who are just really concerned with the employee experience. Lots of industries in our country especially are really struggling to recruit and retain key talent.
As we are. It's a big issue, isn't it? In terms of, we've got quite a large amount of people we want to recruit up right now, and it's difficult.
It is really difficult, and it's affecting certain industries harder than most. The legal sector in the UK, for example, is really starting to embrace intelligent automation. They were much quicker to do it in the US, but they're really coming to the fore with intelligent automation right now. And a part of that has been motivated by their inability to hold on to paralegals. And, recruitment and retention is a massive, unique selling point when engaging with consultancies to do RPA engagements.
So, Chris, I guess what we can take from some of the conversation so far is that for us, it's not about companies replacing people. We know that, as we just said, finding the right talent is a real difficult thing right now. So, if we can actually allow people to spend more time, their employees to spend more time talking to their customers, talking to their suppliers, perhaps creating a new product for the organisation, whatever it might be, to add value in those different ways, and that's going to be really powerful for those companies. Particularly if they can't hire new talent, they can actually use the talent they've got, retrain them, use that massive brain power that people have got, and let the bots do that boring stuff that gets in the way.
No, absolutely. I think it's a really important point to raise, like the idea of technology and people, or bots and bods, as we like to say, working collaboratively. We're not there to eliminate jobs, we're there to provide digital assistance to do all of the horrible work that we really don't need a human brain to do anymore. So I think you can break down our offering into three principal capability areas. Firstly, you have our NextBots. These are the software bots centered on RPA and AI technology that we use to automate manual processes. So once we have scoped and mapped out your existing process and designed an automated solution, it is our NextBots that we implement to automate the repetitive, mundane elements of that process. Secondly, we have our platform NIA, or the Nextbotics Intelligent Automation Hub. This is essentially your control center to monitor and manage all of the processes that you automate with us. This is where we would manage all of your business exceptions, your approvals, workflows, and critically, where you can source analytics. So anything to do with the performance of the bots, how much you've spent, the return on investment you're accruing, so you can monitor that, properly challenge your managed service provider, and export that information into a report that you can share internally.
Just wanted to pick up on a point you made there around business exceptions, because a lot of people think business exceptions are a bad thing. We talk about 85% straight through processing with maybe 15% business exceptions. But talking about those business exceptions, are they bad?
Identifying business exceptions is a massive USP from an automation engagement. A business exception could be anything from a supplier forgetting to put a PO number on an invoice. So identifying the exceptions that are occurring and in what volumes are occurring and with which suppliers, let's say, is an excellent way for you to streamline your processes internally. So business exception certainly isn't a bad thing. It's just a mechanism to monitor the things that naturally occur in processes that need smoothing out internally.
No, that's great stuff. And I guess the other thing is, from a workflow perspective, NIA is a great tool to help customers with their internal workflows, where again they can hand something off to a bot. The bot can go do some work, come back to the human for some input, and then hand it back to the bot to go and execute and finish the task, which is that kind of workflow human bot interaction again that we talk about, bots and bots working together, really powerful, as well as like approvals and all those things as well. So
yeah, absolutely. It's essentially your central repository of truth. It provides you with an audit trail of everything that happens with your data, and it eliminates the possibility of sending an approvals email to someone who misses that email or has gone on vacation. Essentially, you can manage your team. I don't love the word Scrum, but in a Scrum fashion, you can assign work to whomever needs it. Everybody has visibility about what needs to be done and what has been done, and that provides a huge benefit to organizations.
Perfect. So I interrupted you. So the point number 3.
Point number 3. So our third main capability is our automation experts. Now, a massive differentiator for Nextbotics is that we offer a fully managed service, from the very initial discovery sessions all the way through to BAU and beyond. It is our contention that it is impossible to meaningfully deploy automation without having a dedicated center of excellence. So if you don't have the time, resource, capability, or inclination to develop your own, you can become a part of ours. So our clients...
And of course, that will save a massive amount of cost for organisations. I mean, typically if you're thinking about a business analyst, an automation developer, maybe a consultant, and a project manager, you're probably talking, £400,000-500,000 a year.
Easily, absolutely. Yeah, so a lot of organizations make the mistake of thinking that hiring RPA developers constitutes as a center of excellence, but providing that the vendor management, the service management, maintaining relationships with the supporting functions and the customers, staying in contact with the steering committee to make sure the output is congruent to the strategic priorities of the organization, and actually successfully automating and re-engineering processes is a very difficult endeavor and incredibly expensive.
Which is why so many fail, of course.
A large amount fail. Even those organizations that do it very well find themselves being very time poor, stuck maintaining existing automations, failing to keep that pipeline of prioritized candidate processes flowing through.
And so is that because they're choosing the wrong processes? Is it because they don't have the right skill set? What, a mixture of the both?
Yeah, I think there's a misconception about how you can implement intelligent automation like it's another form of software. We see lots of organizations that silo intelligent automation into their technical divisions, but this is very much a business unit focused endeavor. It's one of the very few parts of the change management space that you can talk about in a room full of technical people and business minded people and everybody's interested. But it is certainly a conversation that needs to be had with the CEO in the room. To begin with, what are the strategic priorities of your organization? How can we positively impact your business? How can we positively impact your P&L? That way we can bear down on the business divisions we should be looking at and ultimately the correct use cases. Organizations that simply palm off intelligent automation to their IT teams are going to find that they're going to struggle to implement themselves into the various parts of the business, making sure that identification process remains alive and thriving.
That's interesting you say about CEO top level down. Certainly MD or director level engagement. Certainly we would say we try and help customers engender a automation first strategy for the business. So think about actually which processes they can always automate, and if there's a new process or a change to a process or a redesign of an organization structure, actually think about automation first as a way to improve the way they work as a business. And actually, I think pretty much all of our engagements, we would say the more senior level sponsorship that we have from the client, then the more successful those engagements become. Because, of course, if the senior team are bought into it, they're going to make sure that, they're picking the right processes that are relevant, they're picking the things that are relevant to the strategy of the business, and making sure the teams below execute fully as well.
Yes, you absolutely do need senior stakeholder buy-in for your automation strategies to be successful. I think one thing that I'm very proud of about our organization is that we have come across so many businesses that are in a mad rush to become efficiently inefficient. And we often advise organizations to execute re-engineering projects internally before they even consider intelligent automation. You should be at a certain level of maturity. And sometimes when you only deal with senior stakeholders, they're quite motivated to find silver bullets. So we do start at the top, we ensure that buy-in, but we spend lots of times with the SMEs and their managers to make sure that this is a relevant process for automation. There's nothing they can do internally to improve it slightly. Yeah, so we've been talking about the provision of a center of excellence, a fully managed service. It potentially sounds quite expensive to a lot of people listening. Is that the case?
Well, actually, if you're going to go down the route of hiring your own people, which some companies do, and certainly large corporates will no doubt do that, but for this kind of mid-market, maybe in the 500,000 employee type of range, it's really cost prohibitive for them to employ these people. As I said earlier, it's probably £500,000 a year for that kind of the amount of people they would need just to run a simple automation solution. So actually using something like us, like our centre of excellence, means that you're effectively paying for a fraction of the people when you need them. So it's much lower cost. It's a fully managed service. So we're not only just managing the automation running live, but if there's any changes to that automation, maybe there's a change to the customer system, or there's a change in the process, then actually that's all covered as part of our managed service for the client. And the best bit, actually, it's a pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-grow model. So the customer only pays for what they use, which is phenomenal. There's no massive upfront fees. There's no paying for technology you're not using. There's a cost of the implementation, some very modest fees to implement the technology initially. But once it's going, it's a pay-as-you-go basis. It's either pay per invoice, per page, per transaction, per hour, whatever model is relevant to the customer's process is the way we charge them. So it's we think it's in fact we get great feedback from customers on that model because they're not outlaying bunches of cash. And of course it's pay as you go on a monthly basis as well. So it's not even yearly upfront, which many other companies charge for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably also worth mentioning that we often encourage organizations when they're first embarking on their automation strategies to automate just one or two processes, prove the utility of the technology. We secure, on average, a positive return on investment for our clients in 3 to 6 months, depending on the size and complexity of an engagement. So naturally, once we've successfully implemented those initial automations, as those organizations expand their strategies, they're essentially paying for it with resource saved rather than out of profit. So securing senior stakeholder buy-in is very, very easy for us. And that's probably quite an important message to get across.
So on that point, do you want to talk us through a customer case study? It might be good to bring that to life.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one that pops into mind is a manufacturing firm that we worked with. We started in accounts payable. They were processing 113,000 invoices a year. That's across 5 different business areas. SMEs had different ways of processing those invoices. It was a little bit of a mess. They actually had a legacy OCR solution implemented with 10% accuracy. I have no idea why it was still in there,
Insane.
but it was. It essentially cost this organization £250,000 a year to process invoices manually. And after a 3-month engagement, we reduced the cost of that process from £250,000 to £70,000. We reduced the size of that team from 9 FTE to 1. So that one person was left to manage exceptions and approvals and supply relations. You keep for organizations that kept forgetting to put POs on invoices and things like this. But this was another example of an organization that took those 8 superfluous people and repurpose them in the business into more strategic and revenue earning positions,
Amazing.
compounding the benefit of that engagement. So they saw essentially 150k benefits after a 3-month engagement. And that is a very standard result for us when we're talking about very document and data heavy processes. We do, however, work with organizations that deal with much smaller volumes. And as a growing boutique ourselves, we don't suffer the economies of scale of a larger consultancy. And we similarly secure very strong and swift ROIs for those organizations too. So you don't need to be dealing with massive volumes. If you've got 2 or 3 full-time employees working on a manual process, and data is the input and output for that process, it's likely a good candidate for automation.
Excellent. So I guess a combination of streamlining the process, removing bottlenecks, removing process lag, improving supplier relationships and service levels to suppliers, reducing cost, driving efficiency, allowing employees to do much more interesting work without doing the boring stuff, and actually a really cost-effective commercial model that goes with it. Why wouldn't you?
That's a very comprehensive list, and I think my favorite out of all of them is the improvements that we see in the work-life balance of employees. We give out lots of surveys to our clients after engagements, and we've seen practically in every case that we have positively impacted the mental health of the SMEs that work in those organizations simply by eliminating the repetitive work that they were having to do on a daily basis. And obviously that makes me feel very good about the work that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Listen, Chris, that seems like a pretty good place to jump off for us here. I'd like to say a massive thank you for joining us today and talking to us a bit about Nextbotics as our company and the solutions we offer to our customers. And to those listening, thanks for listening as always. Hope you found that episode very useful. There'll be lots more in the series to come. We're going to be talking to some partners, to some customers, some technology reviews from our internal specialists. And if there's any views or opinions you want to hear about, then please do drop us a line and we'll get onto those as well. So thanks for your time.